Hi, it is Michael Harvey, storyteller here, and today we're going to be talking about the big question of storytelling. What is the one big question you need to ask yourself to really make storytelling function? Well, there are so many to choose from. Who is my audience? Great question. Why am I telling this story? Another great question. How should I tell this story? What story should I tell? When is the best moment to tell a story? These are all very important, very clear, and functional questions to ask. However, there's a deeper question, and it's the question that everyone forgets. Where is storytelling? I'm not going to explain this. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so here's a story. I will give you no context. I'm going to break one of my own rules. I'm not going to tell it. I'm going to read it for reasons that will become clear very shortly. So here we go. Here's the story. It's very short. I hope you like it. It is called The Ugly Woman and the Shadow Monster. Once in the rainforest, there lived a woman. She had to live in the rainforest because no one would let her live in the village. They said she was too ugly. People said that she made them feel sick. She lived in the rainforest, but she felt really sad and lonely. When other people came into the rainforest, she would go up to them with what she thought was a big smile on her face, but they would scream and run away. She felt so rejected that she went into the gloomiest part of the rainforest and took leaves from the plants and sewed herself a kind of costume. She covered herself with these leaves so that she didn't really look like a human being anymore. She looked like some kind of leaf monster. One night, she's in the middle of the rainforest when something runs across her path. "What's that? Who's there?" she said. And suddenly this thing turned and it looked at her, and it was big, it was huge, it was monstrous. And she said, "You are even uglier than me. What are you?" "I am the shadow monster." "I'm not frightened of you." "You don't need to be," said the shadow monster, taking something from his long fur. It looked like a stick with holes in. It was a flute. And he started to play. It was the most beautiful tune she had ever heard. She began to feel totally different. One by one, the leaves began to fall off, and she was glad to be rid of them. And then she felt really thirsty. She went to the pool, and by the light of the moon she saw her face, and she saw that she was beautiful. The shadow monster played and played the beautiful music. "I am beautiful," she said. "I can go back to the village, back to the people, and they will be my friends." "And what will happen then?" said the shadow monster. "They will accept me and they will like me." "Why?" "Because I am beautiful." "And why did they reject you before?" "Because I was ugly." "And is there any real difference?" "No. They will only like me because I am beautiful, so I don't want them as friends, because they wouldn't be real friends. I would rather have one real friend than 100 false friends." "And do you have a good friend?" said the shadow monster. And she said, "Yes, I do." "And who is that?" And she said, "You." And now the beautiful woman lives in the rainforest with the shadow monster, and by the light of the moon he plays the flute and she dances. I hope you enjoyed that story. I'm going to give you a little bit of context now. This story was created by a group I was working with, a group of young people of about 7 to 11 years old. All of them had fairly severe learning challenges. And as soon as I said that, suddenly the story makes sense. They made a beautiful, clear, light, actually, metaphor of their own lives. And that comes from the where. So, okay, let's talk more about the where, because this is actually the whole point of this little video. The where is where the story is created and or performed. So what we had was not a great run. It was a room in an Edwardian classroom, so parquet flooring, it's quite dark inside, but we had our own space. That's the vital thing. The kids are sitting on chairs, I'm sitting with them. We are in a circle so we can see each other. There's a mutuality of gaze. Everyone can see everyone else. The teachers are there. There are a couple of teachers, maybe 2 or 3 teachers in the background. So they're not part of the group sitting down, but they are not controlling, they're holding. So if there's a little kind of behavioural mishap or something, they'll come in and they'll deal with it very lightly and not break across the activity. That's really important. The activity retains its integrity as we work. And also we knew no one was going to barge in, because you know what, if you've ever worked in schools, occasionally the door will open, someone will barge in, completely break the atmosphere, and then go out after they've delivered their message, and it's very hard to get back on track. Or even worse, someone comes in and takes a child out because they've got to go and do recorder practice or something. That's a complete nightmare. So when I'm setting up a situation, whether it's for children or adults, we need to know this is our space. You can't wander in and out at will. It's a crucible in which we make creativity and stories happen. So this space that I'm talking about is enclosed and interruption free. It is the group's space. They have ownership of it. They inhabit it. It's a held rather than a controlled space. There is democratic placement and seating. You can't tell from where people are in the room who's in charge. There's a balance of structure and freedom. And that's where the facilitator skill comes in, where we set up activities that are of an interesting enough stretch to challenge, but not going to disorientate or demoralize. This approach uses a modeling rather than an instructing mode of working with the group. So what happens if you model, people get it. If you explain, people understand it. Getting it is much more important than understanding it. We need to give the group high quality, engaging, creative input. So for example, if you're using art materials, use good art materials. If you're going to be in nature, be in a really beautiful space. The focus is on process, not outcome. You will get an outcome, and you will get the outcome you want, but it's not the one you expect. This is one of the great gifts of working with story and creativity. Also, there's a feeling of having a go. It's not about getting it right. It's about having a go and committing to something that you don't necessarily have a clear view of what the outcome is going to be. Another really important thing is that when people are working, they have agency. And what I find in groups is very often there's a spontaneous mixing of groups. So one group will work over here, another group will work over there, and then suddenly the groups will meld, but it's always to do with agency, and it's always to do with working together. Now, I can't take any credit or originality for this whole idea of the where of storytelling. It all comes down really to Mahalia Csikszentmihalyi, who you may have heard of. There's a link below if you want to follow it. His great books on flow and creativity are a fantastic place to start, where we create the space where people can be engaged, focused, playful, authentic, brave, reflective, and true. And if you can do all those things, well, what can't you do?